What is up, heroes? This is Midnight Zero, and I'm joined by...
Hello, it's Max once again.
And welcome to the team prep for the championship. We have made it to the finals. We're going up against our rivals, the Golurk Laganns. We had sights on from day one, and lo and behold, here we are prepping for the championship, going up against our rivals. The very first time we played them was super difficult. It was a very intense match. If you haven't seen it, be sure to check that out. And you'll notice, if you've seen that match, that our team this time is pretty different. It's a very odd, very weird-looking team, but believe us when we say that we put a lot of time, put a lot of prep thought into this, and we think this is the team. This is the team to bring.
Yeah, I think this team will be very, very good. There's a lot of risks in it, but you have to take some risks to win.
Yeah,
so.
risk and reward for sure. But anyways, the
Yeah.
first member is the newcomer for the playoffs was Yasuhiro Hagakure, our Tangela. Oh my god, this Tangela is so funny. We were thinking what we needed after the first time we battled the Golurk Laganns, and we needed some stronger physical defense. Something that could take on Excadrill, something that could take on physical T-Tar. And Tangela, we actually traded for because look at this defense stat. Defense and HP are like pretty solid, and you throw in a Violate on there, and this thing is a physical wall. Like a wall. Like, for example, Choice Banded Adamant Excadrill does around 45% maximum with X-Scissor. So like, we're not even getting 2-hit KO'd by a Choice Banded X-Scissor from an Adamant Excadrill. And we take on Banded T-Tar. We literally take on anything physical on his team, which is pretty awesome. Any physical Flygon, anything but Flare Blitz from Emboar, even Sneasel. We need to be careful of knockoff though. We get 2-hit KO'd by Swellow's Brave Bird and Emboar's Flare Blitz, but outside of that, we take everything on. Even Adamant Choice Banded Stoutland, we take about a third from a return. So, yeah, this thing is going to be really important.
Swellow's Flare Brave Bird is on Guts, right? With Guts.
Yeah, with Guts. Max attack.
Okay, yeah.
So,
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So this thing takes on any hit, and with a Regenerator, we can actually heal really easily by switching out, and we plan on making a lot of double switches, playing very offensively. When you see, when we talk about the rest of the members of our team, we'll need to play aggressively to get some of these weaker or more frail mons in on some of their, not super fast mons to pressure them to switch out a lot, and with hazards and such to build up damage over time. But a lot of the switch-ins to this thing don't appreciate being leech seeded or toxic. Leech Seed helps us get recovery, and so that once we seed something, if we have to switch out, we get a Regenerator boost, and whatever comes in to take a hit gets a little bit of healing afterwards to keep things healthy. Synthesis is there so that we can take on any of his physical attackers. Like I said, we take less than half from any physical attack he can go for, minus crits. And so we outstall everything. The sand could be a little bit of a problem. If he's Choice Banded T-Tar, we could actually stall out the sand though if necessary. With Synthesis plus Leech Seed. And anything that does want to switch in, maybe like Wheezing in particular, doesn't want to be Leech Seeded. But amongst the other things, if we are pretty healthy, if we're not too worried about having to heal up quite a bit, we can Toxic. And early on, if we get a lot of mons Toxic, that'll get a lot of passive damage over the course of the game. And Giga Drain is there to do a little bit of damage using that solid base 100 special attack stat and to heal a little bit as well. So this Tangela, we need to keep this healthy to deal with his physical attackers. So it's going to be very important that we keep this healthy, but if it comes in on a physical attacker, like that attacker's not doing anything. We need to be careful about Fire Blast and Ice Beam from T-Tar though, in particular.
Yeah. It's not that very difficult to keep it healthy with like Leech Seed, Synthesis, and Regenerate at the same time. And Giga Drain as well, so there's a very long survivability, and also since Gourgeist comes in on Leech Seed, it's good that we have Toxic on the side so we can Toxic that because it's super fat on the physical side at least, so it really won't appreciate that a lot at all. So yeah, Tangela's going to be a monster. I think it's going to be the main star of this battle.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
But anyways, moving on to the next mon.
Next mon is Ambipom, which we noticed last battle that Ambipom is a must-bring any battle against their team. It does so well against like so many Pokemon. Just the Fake Out alone does so much to Aself, mostly breaks the sash. Galvantula breaks the sash there, and we also outspeed or speed tie with the Self, but we outspeed the Galvantula at least, meaning we pretty much just stop it from putting up webs, which is amazing. We also have low kick for Pokemon such as Tyranitar, which can come in on pretty much any other of our moves, so having low kick there it makes Tyranitar pretty weak to us because it does so much damage to it, as well as extra deal for that matter.
Right.
And then we have knockoff for pretty much to kill Azelf after the fake out. It kills itself. Also, Meowstic and Gourgeist are pretty weak to it. And there's nothing that ever appreciates losing their item. So, yeah, Ambipom is just a must bring.
Yeah,
It's super good.
definitely super helpful. Fake out or return or knockoff into low kick KOs Excadrill and Tyranitar unless it's like super bulky. Fake out
Yeah.
into return does a little over 50% to Clefable, forcing it to soft boiled, meaning it can't set up on us. And yeah, this thing's speed will be really helpful. Fake out, it's really helpful to have this sort of priority and to potentially stall out sand turns if they bring in Sand Rush Excadrill.
Yeah, that too.
But yeah, also real quick note, on our Tangela, we have one extra point in speed because it hits the exact same base speed as Clefable, and that way we can Toxic Kick or Leech Seed or Synthesis first, meaning we can switch in and rely on being able to Synthesis first before taking a Moonblast, which would do like 45 to 50%. So just barely speed creeping the Clef there.
Yeah.
And so the next Mon, Sakurachi Riko, our Sylveon, is making an appearance against them. You wouldn't expect Sylveon to be brought to this matchup given they have an Excadrill, which is easily one of the things that hits Sylveon the hardest. But when looking at our team, we needed more of a special wall. We needed something that could take special hits, but primarily from Flygon. Our team was super Flygon weak, and it had a little bit of difficulty with Mega Blastoise as well. And he's got a couple other strong special attackers like Galvantula and Azelf, and this takes hits from those really well. It can set up on them, even Calm Minding. A common counter to it, one would expect, would be Wheezing, but we actually Calm Mind on that as well. And Hyper Voice does a lot of damage to just about everything, especially when we can set up. It does over half to T-Tar, it OHKOs Flygon, it does a ton to Emboar. So this thing hits decently hard. It can boost up on anything that tries to set up on it, especially once Excadrill is gone. And it also can boost up alongside Clefable, potentially, and doing about a third to Clefable, preventing it from setting up too much. And we also have one extra point invested in speed for this as well, so that we can... Sorry, Lizzie, give me a look.
Sorry.
Oh, that's the magic of editing, so
Yeah.
you're good.
So that we outspeed Clef again, and if we're trying to like get a crit war essentially, the first to get a crit, we beat Clef 1v1 from a probability standpoint, and we force it to be on the defensive side, soft boiling more often than moon blasting. So yeah, that's why Sylveon is particularly helpful.
Yeah, and we also have 4 EVs in speed as well, for the same reason as Tangela, because they were both base 60, so...
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So next up is actually a Scarfed Infernape, and just looking at their team, there's so much we hit super effectively with our both of our stabs. There's Tyranitar, Excadrill, there's Sneasel, especially because Sneasel is a pretty big problem for Tangela in particular with knockoff and then Icicle Crash that does pretty decent damage actually, and we don't really want our Tangela knock off because we want it to survive as long as possible. So Infernape is actually a pretty good switch into to Sneasel because we resist both of its stabs, and it doesn't really have a move for Infernape. And since we are Choice Scarfed, unless they are Choice Scarfed as well, we have pretty much a free U-turn there because there's no way they're staying in. We are also bringing Stealth Rocks because there's a lot of potential Sash Pokemon on their team. Like we do have Fake Out and Ambipom in the back, but just having that as well, as a lot of their Pokemon are weak to Stealth Rocks, such as Galvantula, Sneasel, Swellow. And since they are all going to switch out a lot with Volt Switch and U-turn on Swellow and Galvantula, I think that's going to be really helpful. They also don't have a lot of Pokemon that can remove hazards. Obviously they have the best spinner in the game, but if they're gonna bring the Sand Rush set, then I doubt it's gonna run Rapid Spin. So this also can throw them for a loop, thinking we're not Scarf if we go for Stealth Rocket first, which will be helpful early game because they think like, oh, maybe we can outspeed with Azelf maybe.
Or Scarf Drill.
Yeah, and Scarf Drill as well. And then we actually outspeed and just knock them out pretty much. So yeah, Infernape's gonna be a monster.
Yeah, it's going to be a beast. And, like, what it isn't super effective against close combat, 2-hit KOs, Flygon. It does a ton to Mega Blastoise depending on the spread. Does a lot to Emboar, does a lot to Regirock. Fire Punch does a lot to Gourgeist and Galvantula. U-Turn is there for momentum, of course. And, yeah, like Max mentioned, Stealth Rock. I'm excited. I really want to go for Stealth Rock and have them think, oh, this isn't Scarf Infernape. And then maybe bring in a Scarf Drill or even a Scarf T-Tar or, like, Galvantula or something like that on our Infernape and, you know, blow him back. But the speed is there to outspeed, I think, Scarf Flygon, but not to outspeed Scarf, Azelf, or Sneasel. Oh, and this 2-hit KOs Swellow with close combat, so...
Yep.
Yeah, moving on to the next mon, we've got your waifu Garbodor. What we didn't bring this mon around the first time because Excadrill, which is their spinner, threatens it obviously, and this thing doesn't take special hits too well, but it actually has a lot of synergy with the mons that we are bringing, and it takes a little pressure off of Tangela on the physically defensive side, and it also helps build up that little bit of passive damage with Rocky Helmet in particular, and more importantly, this thing is a solid Clef counter. It takes 15% from a typical Clef's Moonblast while doing over half with Gunk Shot. So Gunk Shot is really good to help check Clef. Drain Punch so we're not sitting ducks against Excadrill. Toxic Spikes and Spikes so that, again, we can build up this passive damage, poison things, so that we can eventually have maybe a Scarf Infernape sweep or an Ambipom sweep even is like very feasible. And yeah, that's really all there kind of is to Garbodor. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. This also helps us with like Emboar. It will take a lot of damage if it even decides to go for an attack.
That's right. Yeah, and we make it play around with if we have Tangela, you know, Tangela takes 45% from a banded superpower, from Adamant banded superpower from Emboar. And it takes like 95% or so from Flare Blitz. But if we make him play 50-50s with Superpower versus Flare Blitz between Garbodor and Tangela, that's really good.
Yep. And our final mon is Latios, which we haven't brought that much, so we're finally bringing it to the finale, so hopefully it doesn't disappoint us. Which is a very... Nick made this set, and I think it will work very well. With just the 3 attacking moves we have, and also Defog, in case we have that Sticky Web, which I think is a major problem for Infernape and Ambipom in particular, because Sticky Web can make Excadrill outspeed if it's Scarf, which will be pretty devastating. So having Defog on Latios, just in case they bring that, is really helpful. We also have Draco, Meteor, and Psychic. We brought Psychic because there's a lot of Pokemon on their team that are just more physically bulky than especially like Weezing just dies to a Psychic. It wouldn't die to a Psyshock if it was physically defensive. There's Regirock, Gourgeist. They just have a much more physically defensive team, which is why I thought Psychic would help more. And since we're not going to stay in on their most especially bulky Pokemon, which is Clefable, I think just Psychic would help more. We also have Surf for Tyranitar and Excadrill, so they don't completely just wall us. Because I know they might bring Tyranitar to Pursuit Trap us. I think that's a very likely bring for them, so we got to play around that. Sadly, Latios doesn't learn U-turn, but we can play around that. There's also Regirock, which does a lot from Surf, so I think Latios will be a monster this
Latios smacks everything on their team. The most difficult part is going to be getting it in on certain mons. We might have to pull some pretty aggressive double switches, aggressive plays with U-turn, in particular on our Infernape, and we have to be really careful if they bring Sneasel or Tyranitar. Those mons take, well, except for Sneasel, but like Tyranitar takes a Draco and then traps us with Pursuit, and then we lose one of our primary forms of offense. So we need to play very careful with our Latios, but once we get it in, man, Draco kills like everything, and what it doesn't kill, basically, Clefable, Excadrill, I'm looking. Yep, that's about it. Surf KOs or OHKOs Excadrill unless it's very bulky, in which case it doesn't OHKO us with a Mold Breaker Earthquake. And then Psychic does about half to an unaware Clefable. And the typical Clefable spread takes around 45 to 50, so it's not like it can come in for free, especially if it has a little bit of chip damage. And my only concern with Psychic was it prevents, it means that Clefable can set up on us if it's 100% healthy and very Spadef oriented, but we have Garbodor to help check that, which is really nice. And we were debating Defog versus Roost for a long time because Roost helps with longevity. This thing can take, you know, Sludge Bombs from Wheezing, etc., but it really can't take too many hits, and Life Orb Recoil will add up. But we ended up deciding Defog was overall better because we don't want to deal with Webs. Webs would essentially shut down our possibility of a sweep with Ambipom or Infernape, which is arguably what our endgame is looking like. So we wanted to make sure we had a fast Defog on our team, unlike Scizor, which is slow enough to the point where it makes it very susceptible to fire-type attacks and doesn't really have the opportunity to get that Defog off.
Yeah. Also, if we need health, we do have Sylveon in the back, which can Wish Pass if we get that opportunity.
Also, if he's not Mold Breaker Excadrill, we can play around with pivoting with Latios and other Mons. So, yeah. So that's the team, and it should be an intense battle. I'm really excited for it. I'm really nervous for it. We are bringing a pretty interesting team, but I think it's going to fit pretty well. And I think either way, regardless of what team we brought, Sam and Austin are great battlers and great team builders as well. So we're going to have to play on point throughout the whole match if we want to catch this V. But yeah, I hope you guys are excited for the battle too. And we'll see you guys in that video. But until then, this has been Midnight Zero, and this mission is complete.